I should not be telling you this, not yet. If I were a cautious man, I would save what I am about to say for a small circle in a quiet room, not for a wider audience. There are certain things that, when heard by a mind unprepared, become a toy, a superstition, a game of chance. But you have stayed, you have listened, you have searched, and something in you insists there must be more to life than effort, sweat, and blind luck. So tonight, I will say what I have often hesitated to say so plainly. This is not a lesson for beginners. This is not for the one who still believes the world moves first and consciousness follows after. This is not for the one who still bows to numbers, tickets, dates, and drawings. Tonight I speak to the part of you that has already been disappointed by luck. You have seen men win and lose in a single breath. You have seen the one who won the great prize and was poor again within a few years. You have seen the one who never touched a lottery ticket, yet his life seemed to unfold as if every door were made of gold and swung open at his arrival. And you have wondered. You have said to yourself, it cannot be mere chance. It cannot be that blind balls tumbling in a machine decide who shall feast and who shall starve. You are right. It is not chance. The world has told you that the lottery is a game of numbers, a drawing, a probability. I tell you tonight, the lottery is a symbol. It is the outer dramatization of an inner selection. The true drawing does not take place on a stage under bright lights. It takes place in the hidden chambers of consciousness, in the silent secret of I am. I should not be sharing this, not with those who want a trick, a formula to shake at the heavens and demand coins to fall from the sky. But you did not come only for coins. Whether you know it yet or not, you came for something far more dangerous. You came for the realization that you are the one who draws the numbers. And once you truly know that, you can never again blame chance, fate, or fortune for your life. That is why I hesitate. You see, it is far safer to believe in luck. If you believe in luck, you can praise it when things go well, and curse it when things go poorly. But you yourself remain innocent, powerless, a victim of fortune. You can say, I tried, I bought the ticket, I hoped. It just wasn't my day. But if what I am about to say takes root in you, you will never again be allowed this comfort. For I tell you, this is not luck. This is identity. You have believed that the winning ticket is outside of you, resting in a little slip of paper, waiting in a shop, or in the hands of another. You have believed that if only you chose the correct sequence, stood in the correct line, or played on the correct day, fate might smile upon you. But fate is not a lady standing with her eyes covered, scattering gifts at random. Fate is your own wonderful human imagination, and she is not blind at all. She sees only what you assume yourself to be. I spent years, like many men, believing that the numbers in an account, the figures on a slip, the visible state of affairs were the cause of my condition. I would look at my world and then decide who I was. When I was poor, I said, I am poor. When I lacked, I said, I am lacking. I worshipped the report, and the report became my God. Then I discovered the law, what I am, I see. What I assume, I meet. So understand this from the beginning. When I speak of a lottery method, I do not mean a way to control pieces of paper. I mean a way to take hold of the only thing that has ever mattered. Your state of consciousness. The lottery is only a shadow cast by a deeper reality. The numbers, the ticket, the date of the drawing, all of it is scenery. The true prize, the real winning, begins long before any drawing takes place. You may say, but Neville, the lottery is random. Is it? Is anything truly random in a world that is nothing more than consciousness made visible? Or is what you call random simply the outer name for that which your inner life has silently prepared? Listen carefully. I am not saying that if you repeat a phrase 10 times and touch a ticket with special fingers, you will force the universe to obey you. That is nonsense. That is magic of the childish sort. I am saying something far more serious. If you become the one who has already won, then all of life will rearrange itself to reflect the identity you wear. Sometimes that may be through a lottery ticket, sometimes through an inheritance, sometimes through an idea, an opportunity, a meeting in a doorway, a letter that arrives at just the right hour. The outer road does not matter. What matters is the inner traveler. This is why I hesitate to call it a lottery method. For the immature mind will cling to the symbol and miss the reality. It will rush to buy tickets without ever changing its state, and then accuse the law of being false when nothing happens. But you who are still listening, you are being invited into something that looks like a secret about winning numbers, but is in truth a secret about the name under which you live. If I said to you, I will show you how to be lucky, you might lean forward with curiosity. But if I said to you, I will show you that you are, in fact, the source from which all outcomes arise, you might feel something heavier, more solemn, begin to stir in you. This is that second thing. So I must warn you. Do not proceed if you wish to keep blaming chance. Do not proceed if you wish to remain a spectator, watching balls roll inside a glass drum and saying, perhaps tonight is my night. Do not proceed if you would rather live as a servant of statistics than as the master of your own assumption. For in a moment, you and I will walk together away from the bright lights of the drawing hall, away from numbers on tickets, and into a quieter room, the inner room, where the true selection is made. There, no one sees you but God. And God, I tell you, is your own wonderful human imagination. Before we go any further, I want you to notice something simple. Look at your present life, your home, your occupation, the weight of money in your pocket, or the lack of it. Could all of this truly be the result of mere accident, of drifting clouds of chance that happen to gather over you in this particular shape? Or is it not far more reasonable to say that your world has been unconsciously arranged by what you have been willing to claim as I am? I am always unlucky. I never win anything. These things never happen for people like me. I am cursed with bad fortune. These are not innocent sentences. These are prayers, uttered again and again at the altar of your own being, and your world has been devout in answering them. Now imagine, if this is what your unobserved inner speech has created, what might happen if you began to speak with awareness, with intention, with faith? Do you see why I say this is not for beginners? A beginner wants to know which numbers to choose. A disciple wants to know which self to wear. I am not here tonight to give you numbers. I am here to call you out of the identity of the loser, the almost winner, the perpetual maybe next time, and into the state of the one who cannot help but be supplied, who cannot help but be chosen, because his very being cries out, I am the one to whom it belongs. You may have bought many tickets in your life. You may have stood in many lines, watched many drawings, listened to many results. Tonight I invite you to something different. Tonight, before we speak of any phrase, before I even hint at the method, I invite you to step out of the line, step out of the crowd, watching the numbers, step out of the anxious hoping and nervous waiting, step out of the identity that says, if only, come with me behind the stage, beyond the hall, into the silence where only one thing matters. Who are you in the depths of your own being? For if you go there as the beggar, you will see a world that confirms your begging. If you go there as the almost winner, you will see a world that teases and withholds. But if you go there as the one already chosen, already blessed, already favored, you will find that life cannot help but reflect your certainty. The world will call it luck. They will say, he was in the right place at the right time. They will say, what a stroke of fortune. Let them say it. You will know the truth, that what appears as a sudden gift was in fact the slow and sure unfolding of an assumption you were brave enough to make and faithful enough to keep when all the senses said otherwise. So I tell you again, this is not luck, this is identity. I speak now to the deeper part of you, the part that has seen enough of struggle, enough of waiting, enough of standing with your nose pressed against the glass of life while others eat at the table. Tonight, you are not here by accident. You have drawn yourself to this very moment. You have, with your questions and your longings, already knocked upon this door, and I am simply the voice that opens it and says, enter. But understand, once you cross this threshold, you can never again pretend to be powerless. In a little while, we will speak of a sentence, a simple arrangement of words that, when spoken from the right state, pulls into your world what others call improbable, impossible, outrageous. But before you can receive that sentence, something must happen in you. You must grow tired of worshipping the ticket, tired of consulting the report, tired of bowing to odds and probabilities. You must be willing to accept the terrible responsibility that what you call your luck has always been your unseen assumption. When you are ready for that, not as a pretty thought, but as a living truth, then the sentence will not be dangerous in your hands. It will not be a toy. It will be a key. And together, we shall turn it. Now, before we proceed further, before we pass beyond the threshold where knowledge becomes demonstration, I must ask something of you, not as a teacher demanding obedience, and not as a performer seeking applause, but as one who knows the laws that govern consciousness. There is a moment when an inner truth must be sealed, not only in silence, but in expression. For the silence conceives, but the spoken or written word brings forth the child into the world. Creation is not complete until the invisible becomes visible. So I ask you for a simple act, not for my sake, but for yours. When this experience concludes, I want you to declare your new identity publicly, not to the crowd, not to me, but to the law itself. Write it not as hope, not as aspiration, but as decree. I am the one it always returns to. Write it as one who has stepped out of the waiting line. Write it as one who no longer petitions fortune, but embodies it. Write it as one who speaks from the end. For there is a curious mystery. You will soon discover that which you speak aloud, even if only in a few words written upon the page, becomes fixed not merely in memory, but in reality. The outer declaration seals the inner covenant. Let others see it, if they must. Let the world witness or ignore it. It matters not. What matters is that you have moved the invisible into form. Do not delay. Do not postpone it until reasoning dulls the fire of conviction. When this chapter ends, let your written word be your signature upon the unseen contract, your announcement to the universe that you have crossed over. You are not speaking to strangers. You are speaking to life itself. And once declared, the next teachings I reveal will not fall upon the ears of the seeker, but upon the soul of the one who already is. Only then can what follows work swiftly, cleanly, inevitably. When you write your words, not later, not someday, but the moment you feel the truth move in you, you seal your identity, not the one who tries, not the one who hopes, but the one who has already been chosen. Do this, and we may proceed. You believe winning is an event. Winning is a state. If you remember nothing else from this night, remember that. Most men sit anxiously before a drawing, or stand in line with their pockets full of hope and their hearts full of doubt, believing that winning is something that happens to them, something conferred by the world, something granted like a rare blessing from an external power. But I tell you, nothing ever happens to you. It happens through you. The drawing, the announcement, the ticket, the moment the winning numbers are spoken aloud, these are merely the shadows cast by an inner transformation that occurred long before. The world is not a cause. It is an effect. It is a mirror, reflecting the assumptions you hold as true. Yet nearly everyone makes the same tragic error. They try to change the reflection without changing the face. They buy tickets. They memorize numbers. They consult patterns, signs, and systems. They chase the prize with feverish desire. But desire is not fulfillment. Yearning is not possession. Longing is not embodiment. The one who desires to win is declaring one thing only: I do not have. And that state perpetuates itself until the world returns the truth of that assumption. A man can say, I wish to win every day of his life, and never hold the prize. For wishing is simply the confession of lack. Look at the world. Do we not see those who have little lose even the little they have, and those who have much receive more without effort? The world calls this injustice. I call it law. For the rich man is rich because of his state, not his coins. The poor man is poor because of his state, not his empty purse. Change the state, and the outer must follow. But changing the world while keeping the same state is like sweeping dust from the floor, while leaving open the window through which the wind blows it back inside. The work is endless because the cause has not been touched. Now let me give you a story, a simple metaphor, yet profound. Picture a beggar who, through the death of an unknown relative, suddenly inherits a vast palace. Marble floors, golden staircases, servants, feasts, chambers more luxurious than anything he has ever imagined. He now possesses, in tangible form, everything a king might envy. And yet, though he sleeps beneath a gilded ceiling and walks halls lined with precious stone, he remains inwardly what he always believed himself to be. He wakes before dawn to wander the streets, holding out his hand for coins. He begs in markets and sits at doorways, not because he lacks fortune, but because he lacks identity. He did not become a king when he entered the palace. He became a beggar with polished floors beneath his feet. He had riches without the consciousness of wealth, and soon, by invisible law, he will lose what he was never willing to assume. You may laugh at such a man, but the world is full of him. A man may win a great sum and lose it. A man may inherit wealth and squander it. A man may find himself surrounded by opportunity and still choose crumbs. Why? Because he never changed self. He changed circumstances. It is the failure of nearly everyone seeking money, prizes, promotion, inheritance, fortune. They chase outcomes while remaining inwardly unchanged. But the outcome is merely the echo of identity. Winning is not a moment when numbers align. Winning is the inner state that forces the numbers to mirror the truth of your being. Do you see the difference? Do you feel the weight of it? Most people treat the lottery as an event. One day, I will win. If only I pick the right numbers. Perhaps this ticket will change my life. They try to drag the future toward them like a heavy cart. But the awakened man understands there is no future. There is only the present assumption, wearing the mask of future events. Winning is not an occurrence. It is not a stroke of fortune. It is not the consequence of numbers, nor chance, nor divine favoritism. Winning is a state of consciousness. Once assumed, it must express itself. Just as the beggar must lose riches, he is unfit to hold. The wealthy man must find riches, regardless of how they travel to him. They may come through a prize, a gift, a position, a stranger, a letter, a business, or an idea whispered in the stillness of the night. Fortune is the child of identity. So I say to you again, stop trying to change your luck. Change the one who walks into the drawing hall. Do not chase the prize. Become the one to whom the prize already belongs. For when the identity is fixed, the world bends, whether through a lottery or through 1,000 other channels, to match the truth you have dared to assume. Now that we have swept aside the common error, we may proceed deeper. If I were speaking to you in a small hall on Madison Avenue in the 1940s, I would begin here. I would look at you, not at your clothing, not at your occupation, not at the numbers you carry in your pocket, but at the state you have chosen to embody, whether consciously or unconsciously. And I would say to you, as I say now, all things exist in the human imagination. The world merely selects from within you that which you have already accepted as true. The law of assumption is not complex. It is not mystical in the sense of being distant or unreachable. It is simple. So simple that most reject it out of frustration, choosing instead the long road of effort, struggle, strategy, and chance. Let me state it plainly. What you assume to be true in consciousness persists until the world echoes it. That is all. And when a man truly understands this, he ceases chasing effects and begins selecting causes, inner causes. He no longer bows to conditions, for he knows conditions are nothing more than solidified imagination. Now let us place this law directly into the context of winning, whether you call it luck, fortune, or the lottery. Most people say, if I win, then I will feel secure, joyful, relieved, free. I say to you, feel secure, joyful, relieved, free, and then you have won. Winning is not something that happens to you. It happens through you. For the truth is simple. There are no winners and losers in life, only states of consciousness that the world embodies and reflects. The poor man may memorize every winning number of the last decade, but until he abandons the identity of the poor man and assumes the identity of the one who already has, he will continue to be impressed by lack. He may buy tickets by the dozen, pray, hope, and yearn, and still remain empty. Not because life withholds anything from him, but because he walks the world as the man who does not have. You cannot receive what you do not first become. And so, when you seek the prize, do not ask, how do I win? Ask instead, who must I be, that winning is natural to me. This is what the law demands. Not effort, not calculation, not ritual, but identity. Let me give you a story. Years ago, a woman came to one of my lectures. She was worn, tired, and convinced that life had conspired to deny her prosperity. She had entered the lottery faithfully every week for nearly 20 years. She kept her slips pressed between pages of a small Bible, believing it made them sacred. She told me, with great emotion, when I win, everything will change. I will finally be free. I asked her, who are you now? She looked confused. Why does that matter? I want to win. I repeated, who are you now? And she answered, the truth, slipping out before she realized it. Someone who never gets her turn. There it was. That simple confession had shaped 2 decades of her life. She was not living as a woman who already had. She was living as the one who perpetually waits. I instructed her to stop playing the lottery entirely. Not because the lottery was wrong, but because she was playing it from the wrong identity. I told her, do not play again until you can do so as the woman who has already won. She resisted, cried, argued, pleaded. Hope is often more comforting than identity, for hope places responsibility on the world. But at last, she agreed. For 3 months, she did nothing but assume the state of wealth fulfilled. She walked through shops, not as a woman longing, but as one selecting. She paid small bills with an inner laughter, as though they were inconsequential. She spoke to herself not as a victim of fate, but as the one favored by life. She ceased asking, when will it be my turn? And began saying, quietly, privately, it is my nature to receive. One morning she woke with a calm unlike anything she had ever known. She said she felt finished, as if the world had already delivered what she once chased. Only then did she buy another ticket, not to win, but as a symbolic participation in a world that already reflected her wealth. She did not watch the drawing. She slept. The next day, a letter arrived, not from the lottery commission, but from a lawyer she had never heard of. A distant relative had passed and left her an estate worth far more than any drawing she had ever pursued. She wrote to me, I did not win the lottery, but the lottery won me. My state called it forth in a form I could not have planned. This is the law of assumption. You do not dictate how the world delivers. You dictate who you are, and the world obeys the identity you choose. Winning is not an event. Winning is a state of consciousness that precedes the event, and if the state is assumed, the event must come, whether by numbers, a will, a gift, a business, or a doorway you have not yet imagined. Do not concern yourself with the route. Concern yourself with the self, for the world is only the postman, carrying letters written by your own imagination. I must speak carefully now, for we are nearing the threshold of a mystery that should never be handled carelessly. Words, when spoken without understanding, are like seeds cast upon stone, beautiful in form, yet incapable of taking root. But when spoken from the proper state of consciousness, a single sentence can move mountains, bend circumstances, and collapse the distance between desire and fulfillment. You have spent years believing that life unfolds through effort and time, that wanting something, working for it, waiting long enough, will eventually drag the desired event into your world. Yet time is not a road you walk to reach your blessing. Time is the veil between who you are and who you have chosen to become. What we are approaching now is not a phrase to repeat, but a state to assume. Before I ever reveal the words to you, you must understand the nature of what you are receiving. This is not a charm, not an affirmation in the shallow sense, not a string of syllables that can coax the universe into compliance. Words are powerless unless animated by the consciousness that speaks them. You do not repeat the sentence, you become it. Let me say that again, slowly, so it sinks beneath thought and into being. You do not repeat it, you become it. A parrot may repeat scripture, yet remain unchanged. A man may chant prayers and remain unredeemed. Repetition without consciousness is merely noise, vibration without spirit, form without substance. What gives the sentence power is not sound, but identity. These words are not meant to be spoken toward a desire, as though you stood at a distance calling it across a field. They are meant to be spoken from the desire, as though you stood already within its fulfillment, looking outward upon a world that now reflects who you have become. For the secret of creation is not, how do I get there? It is, I am already there. The sentence you are approaching does not create wealth, it assumes wealth, and assumption is creation. You see, the mind enslaved to the senses believes that time separates you from your desire, that there is a future moment when your manifestation will finally arrive, and so you live in the aching space between longing and fulfillment, always hoping, always waiting. But hope is a confession that you do not yet have. Expectation is the shadow cast by doubt. Desire is beautiful, but without assumption, it remains forever unfulfilled. The sentence you will soon hear does only one thing, but it is the only thing that matters. It collapses the illusion of time. It does not say, one day. It does not say, soon. It does not say, I want, or I hope, or I ask. It speaks from the end, and when the end is assumed as present, the middle reshapes itself to match. The world rushes to align with your inner declaration. People, events, so-called coincidences, chance encounters, unexpected letters, sudden opportunities, all arise as bridges to the world your consciousness already inhabits. Think of Scripture, calling the things that are not seen as though they were. This is not poetry, it is instruction. Creation is finished. All possible states already exist. You do not create the blessing, you select the state in which it is already yours. The sentence is merely the verbal clothing of that selection. It is the door by which you step from the identity of the seeker into the identity of the possessor. It is the moment the beggar realizes he is heir to a kingdom and speaks not as one pleading for crumbs, but as one gently commanding what is already his. And now you understand why I hesitate to reveal it prematurely. Many who hear these words are eager, not ready. They want the sentence as a tool to force life into action, yet remain rooted in the identity of the one who lacks. They will speak the words with trembling hands, begging tones, nervous hearts, and then wonder why nothing changes. The world does not respond to your words. It responds to the self who speaks them. So before you receive the sentence, you must prepare the only instrument that can wield it, your inner being. Let us take a moment now to clarify what the sentence is not. It is not a plea. It is not a request. It is not an affirmation meant to convince the mind of something it does not believe. It is declaration. It is selection. It is embodiment. It does not speak toward the desire. It speaks as the desire. It does not say, let me have. It says, I am. We are trained from childhood to ask, to petition, to beg God for blessings, as though he were a distant figure, sitting in judgment, withholding gifts until we are worthy. But I tell you the truth, God is not separate from you. God is the consciousness with which you assume a state. And when you speak from the end, you speak with the authority of God himself. This is why the ancients said, before you call, I answer. Because calling is not external speech, it is internal assumption. When the assumption has been made, the world must obey. Now let me place before you a metaphor. Imagine a man standing at a train station. The train he wishes to board is scheduled hours away. He paces, he checks his watch, he looks down the tracks. He is in the state of waiting. So waiting is all he knows. Even when the train finally arrives, he boards not as a traveler confident of his destination, but as a man relieved that time has finally released its hold on him. Then imagine another man. He does not wait for the train. He assumes he is already aboard. He walks differently. He stands differently. His mind dwells on what he will do once he arrives, not on how long it will take to depart. And in due time, the train arrives to fulfill his assumption, not to grant him permission. The sentence is the second man. It is the speech of completion, not anticipation. If you are still saying, one day you are not ready. If you are still asking when will it happen, you have not assumed the end. If you are still listening for signs, you are still doubting the origin. For when a man truly assumes a state, he loses all interest in evidence. The world becomes a delayed reflection, not a condition of faith. Now let me say one more thing before we move on. Something essential. You must be still enough to hear the sentence. Not hear with the ears, but with the inner being. The words themselves are simple, almost too simple. So simple that the unprepared mind will dismiss them as childish, trivial, ordinary. But their simplicity is their power, for complexity is the language of doubt. Simplicity is the language of truth. As long as you seek sophistication, you will overlook God, for the divine hides in the simple, the quiet, the ordinary. And so the sentence comes clothed in few words, not to conceal power, but to prevent the unready from misusing it. Soon, very soon, you will hear it. But before that moment arrives, you must be aligned with it, not trembling, not asking, not hoping, not reaching, but ready. Ready to speak, not as one who desires, but as one who is. When that shift occurs, when you are no longer the seeker, but the possessor, then, and only then, the sentence becomes living fire. Until then, it is ink on paper. Breath without soul. We are nearing the moment. Prepare yourself. In the chapters ahead, you will not learn how to obtain the blessing. You will learn how to speak as the one who holds it. And when you do, life cannot resist you. It must fall into place. Now, let us go deeper. You have heard me say many times that imagination creates reality. But tonight, I must speak more precisely. Imagination alone is not enough. It is imagination clothed in feeling that brings forth your world. Feeling is the garment, the bridge, the breath that animates thought and makes it flesh. A desire unaccompanied by feeling is like a candle without flame, shaped to hold fire, yet cold to the touch. It possesses structure, but not life. A man may desire wealth for 50 years, pray for it, plan for it, and yet remain poor. Not because the desire is unworthy, but because it has never been felt fulfilled. He remains in the emotional posture of wanting, and wanting perpetuates itself endlessly. The world is not moved by your wishes. It is moved by the assumption that your wish is already true. When you say, "I want to win," your very words betray a state of absence. Even if you speak them loudly, with passion and trembling hands, you speak as the one who does not have. You are emotionally confirming the distance between yourself and the thing you seek. But when a man says, even in silence, "It is mine," and feels the ease, the relief, the quiet, knowing that accompanies fulfillment, then the world must obey. For the world is nothing more than the outer echo of your inner accomplishment. You must not feel the desire. You must feel the result of the desire fulfilled. This distinction is the narrow gate through which few pass. The feeling of wanting is restless, tense, filled with motion and anticipation. It leans forward into tomorrow. It asks, when? It watches the world like a beggar waiting for bread. The feeling of fulfillment, however, is still, satisfied, complete. It rests in now. Fulfillment does not lean, it settles. Let me guide you for a moment. Not with instructions, but with experience. Close the doors of your senses. Withdraw from the noise of the world. Lay aside your anxieties, as one lays aside a heavy cloak at night. For a cloak is warmth only when worn. Once removed, it becomes lifeless cloth. Imagine now that the event for which you have long waited has already occurred. Do not imagine the moment of winning. Imagine after. Imagine the world as it appears when the matter is finished, sealed beyond question or doubt. There are several scenes we may enter together, and each is crafted not to excite you, but to settle you. Let us begin gently. You are seated at a small table, perhaps in your kitchen or study. Before you lies a piece of paper, smooth, crisp, freshly handled. It is not glowing. It is not sacred. It is simply real. You unfold it slowly, and there upon the page you see the numbers that have already been declared victorious. Not as anticipation, not as hope, but as fact. They match your ticket perfectly. And as you trace them with your eyes, the sensation is not frenzy, but recognition. Of course, you do not gasp, you do not leap from your chair. You feel something deeper, a profound exhale, a loosening inside the chest, as if a great weight has dissolved without struggle. This is relief. This is completion. This is fulfillment made flesh. Now let us move to another scene. A telephone rings, not loudly, but distinctly. Its sound feels different than usual, not because it is magical, but because you know why it rings. Before touching the receiver, you already feel the calm that comes from knowing the caller brings good news. You answer not as one who hopes, but as one who expects. You speak little, listening more than talking, because you do not need to force anything. The words on the other end confirm what you have already accepted within. Arrangements are being made, papers are prepared, your winnings are processed. You thank the speaker, not with trembling excitement, but with quiet gratitude. When the call ends, you simply sit in silence, feeling the completion settle through you like warm light. Now one more scene, perhaps the most important: you are alone. There is no announcement, no spectators, no external proof. You are seated in a chair, holding nothing but the awareness that all is done. Money exists, yes, but it does not lord itself over you. You are not breathless. You are not frantic. You are calm, free. No thought of how long will it last. No fear of losing. You simply are. In this stillness, there is no longing, no reaching, no distance. There is only being. That feeling, this quiet, natural possession, is the key. Most people ruin their manifestations by clinging to excitement. Excitement is not fulfillment. It is reaction. It belongs to the moment of discovery, not the state of having. When you imagine with excitement, you imagine as one who has just received, not as one who has already possessed. Fulfillment is not a spark. It is a steady flame. The wealthy do not wake every morning thrilled that they can pay their bills. They simply do so. The man who is deeply loved does not tremble each time he hears his name called. He rests in affection. The one who has already received does not celebrate receiving. He lives receiving. This is why many fail. They attempt to manifest through emotion of desire, never emotion of fulfillment. When you imagine yourself signing the winning slip, do not imagine shaking hands and pounding hearts. Imagine your hand moving across paper with the steady ease of someone accustomed to such things. Feel the weight of the pen, the texture of the document, the naturalness of the action. When you imagine depositing the funds, do not imagine a trembling voice and racing breath. Imagine a quiet morning, a calm walk, a teller who treats you no differently than before, because wealth has become so natural to you that even the world no longer reacts dramatically. If you can feel naturalness, you can manifest. If you insist on excitement, you remain in desire. Now let me take you further inward. Sense the change not in your mind, but in your body. Notice how the chest loosens when you accept completion. Notice how the shoulders drop when there is nothing left to chase. Notice how breath deepens when effort ends. This physical ease is not incidental. The body reflects the consciousness it hosts. You cannot hold the state of fulfillment while clenching your stomach, tightening your jaw, and breathing like a hunter stalking prey. Fulfillment is rest. A man in fulfillment behaves as if life has already bent to his will. He does not check, or search, or wait. He moves through the world with quiet ownership. When you feel this state, do not add effort. Do not strain for stronger emotion. Do not try to deepen it. Fulfillment deepens itself when you stop reaching for more. Let it rest. Let it settle. Let it exist without commentary. There is nothing to prove. Let me ask you now, what would change in your speech if it were done? What would change in your posture, your plans, your tone? Fulfillment always expresses itself in subtle ways. You stop thinking of money as rescue and begin thinking of money as resource. You stop dreaming of someday and begin choosing today. You stop measuring your worth by circumstance and begin letting circumstance flow from your worth. You are not trying to attract wealth, you are remembering it. Let us return once more to the table where that paper lies. This time, do not look at the numbers. Let the paper rest untouched beneath your hand. Do not lift it. Do not announce it. Simply sit with the knowledge that whatever future you once imagined is now present. There is nothing to obtain, nothing to wait for, nothing to request. The world is already arranged. Be still. This is the state akin to fulfillment, the fertile soil into which the sentence will be planted. If you speak the words from longing, they fall dead. If you speak them from fulfillment, they carry the power of law. Feeling is the secret, because feeling is the state, and the state is the cause. Now breathe gently, not as a technique, but as a symptom of being the one who has, not a breath toward, but a breath from. Let the body assume the ease of completion. Let the mind release its effort. Let the heart descend from urgency into quiet ownership. You do not need to force the feeling. A feeling forced is not fulfilled. It is desperate. Instead, allow the feeling to emerge like warmth spreading from within, soft, steady, unquestioned. This is how creation unfolds. A desire becomes an assumption becomes a feeling becomes a state becomes a fact, and all begins within. We are close, very close, to the moment where the sentence will be spoken. But it must be spoken from this place, not from hunger, not from hope, but from wholeness. Remain here a moment longer. Do nothing, want nothing. Become the one who has. When you can sit in silence, without reaching for proof, without searching for signs, without asking when, then you stand at the gate of manifestation. Soon, I will give you the words, but you must be capable of speaking them as truth, not as a wish, not as a plea, as the natural speech of one who has already crossed the threshold. Rest here. All is done. You have now entered the borderland between two worlds, the world of sense and the world of imagination. It is here, on this sacred threshold, that all true creation takes place. When I speak of the state akin to sleep, I do not refer merely to physical drowsiness, nor to the drifting moment before the body loses consciousness. I speak of a state in which the senses grow quiet, the world fades, and imagination becomes the sole reality. In this state, your subconscious accepts without question the impressions you give it, because the guard of reason has stepped aside. The mind that doubts, calculates, argues, and measures retreats. The inner chamber opens, and into that chamber you must plant your assumption, not as hope, but as fact. The subconscious does not know possibility. It knows only reality. If you descend into this state while holding the feeling of having already received, your subconscious will accept that condition as true, and the outer world will rearrange itself to mirror what you have impressed upon it, not through effort, not through force, but by a law as dependable as the sunrise. When I first discovered this, I realized why prayer, for most people, fails. They pray from a state of longing, not fulfillment. They petition God as though He were outside themselves, rather than assume the consciousness of their desire already manifested. They beg when they should declare. But tonight, I will guide you step by step into the state where the declaration becomes natural. Let us begin. Sit or lie in a position that is comfortable but not careless. Do not slump, for slumping belongs to weariness, not fulfillment. Let the body rest in dignity, in quiet power, as though you were seated in a carriage or in a grand hall awaiting an announcement that has already been made in your favor. The spine may be straight or reclined, but let there be grace in your posture, an unspoken acknowledgement that something holy is about to occur. Now breathe, not deeply through effort, but naturally as one who has nothing left to chase. Let the breath fall of its own accord. Each exhale is a small surrender. Each inhale is a quiet receiving. Feel your ribs soften, your shoulders loosen, your face unmask itself. You are not performing, you are returning. Do not rush into imagery. Do not try to visualize. That is the mistake of the anxious mind. Instead, let stillness prepare the soil. Thought will attempt to intrude memories, tasks, worries, loose strings of the day. Do not fight them, for fighting is also effort. Simply let them drift past like men walking across a distant field. You do not call to them. You do not walk after them. You remain here, resting in yourself. The senses will begin to dull. The sound of the room will recede. The weight of the body will soften, as if it were dissolving into the mattress or chair. The boundaries between flesh and space will blur. This is the entrance. As you descend, remember, you are not falling asleep. You are sinking into the creative depth where the subconscious becomes receptive. If you slip into full sleep, that is fine. But the work takes place in the liminal space just before surrender. Now, as the outer world fades, allow a single scene to arise. Not a dramatic scene, not the moment you win, not fireworks or crowds or sudden bursts of joy. Those belong to desire. We seek fulfillment. Choose a moment that would be true if your desire were already realized. Perhaps it is the simple act of folding a letter and placing it inside a desk drawer, confident that arrangements are complete. Perhaps it is your hand signing a document with the ease of someone accustomed to abundance. Perhaps it is sitting quietly at your table, feeling the security of more than enough without delight or fear. Select a scene with the qualities of finality, something that implies completion without anticipation. The subconscious understands implication better than declaration. If you imagine a scene that presupposes fulfillment, the mind has no choice but to accept fulfillment as the premise. Now enter that scene, not as spectator, but as participant. Do not watch yourself. Be yourself. Do not see your face as though you stood before a mirror. See through your own eyes. Feel the weight of your own body, the texture of the surface beneath your hand, the coolness or warmth of the room. If, for instance, you choose to imagine yourself signing a document confirming your winnings, feel the pen between your fingers. Sense the slight resistance of paper beneath its tip. Hear the soft scratch of ink. Notice the calmness in your chest, the naturalness in your breath. A man who signs such a paper is not astonished. He is known to such experiences. If you imagine receiving a call, do not imagine hearing the words. Instead, feel the manner in which you hold the receiver, the subtle shift in your posture, the relaxation that floods you, not because you are surprised, but because you are recognized. Do nothing spectacular. Do nothing grand. Keep the scene short, only a few seconds long, and repeat it until it takes on the quality of reality, not fantasy. The subconscious accepts that which feels real through repetition, not intensity. Some will say, Neville, must I feel excitement? No, excitement is transient. Fulfillment is permanent. Excitement is the spark. Fulfillment is the flame. If excitement arises naturally, let it pass and return to the quiet state of having. The key is to feel the scene as memory rather than anticipation. A memory does not strain. It rests. You may feel a gentle heaviness in the limbs, a soft pressure between the eyes, a sense that your body has become distant while your awareness sharpens inwardly. This is the doorway to the subconscious. Here you must plant your assumption as though planting a seed beneath fertile soil. Do not think of how the world will deliver what you assume. The subconscious does not concern itself with method, probability, timing, or logic. The moment you concern yourself with how, you have left fulfillment and returned to desire. Remember this well. The subconscious does not know possibility, only reality. If you feed it the feeling of completion, it must construct a world to match. Now remain in your scene. Repeat it gently, without strain. Do not force detail. Let detail arise naturally. If the scene changes, do not correct it harshly. Simply guide it back. Like a shepherd guiding a sheep, the subconscious obeys gentleness more readily than force. If your body begins to slip into physical sleep, allow it. The final impression before sleep holds extraordinary creative power. If the last thing you feel is fulfillment, the subconscious will work throughout the night to shape circumstances accordingly. If your mind rises and wanders, do not condemn yourself. Return to the scene with the same ease with which you return to a path after stepping off the road to observe a flower. Creation is not damaged by momentary distraction. It is damaged by frustration. Remain here for as long as it feels natural. When you feel complete, when the scene no longer feels imagined but lived, you may drift into sleep or simply open your eyes. The work is done. You will notice something in the hours or days that follow. Your thoughts will carry less desperation. Your conversations will shift. You will speak with a different tone. Opportunities will arise without your seeking them. People will behave differently around you, not because they have changed, but because your state has. The world cannot help but imitate the consciousness that animates you. And when night returns, you may enter this state again, not because you lack the result, but because you deepen your identity. You reinforce the truth you have claimed. Soon, your scene will feel so natural that you no longer need to imagine it. When that happens, you will know you have crossed from imagination into embodiment. The scene ceases to be a tool. It becomes memory. And when it becomes memory, it must become fact. Rest now in the silence you have created. A new state is forming within you, and the world must bow to the state. When a man seeks to win, he imagines that winning will bring him relief. He hopes that a sudden change in fortune will ease his burdens, calm his nerves, silence the relentless whisper of fear that follows him from table to bed and bed to table. He imagines that the acquisition of wealth will finally grant him permission to breathe. But I tell you, relief does not follow winning. Relief precedes it. The world you behold is nothing more than the outpictured arrangement of inner states. You believe that the result produces the emotion, but it is the emotion that produces the result. If you feel relief only after the event, then you confess that the event is the cause, and in doing so, you place yourself beneath it. But the creative order is reversed. You are the cause, the world is the echo. If winning the lottery would bring relief, then relief, assumed now, must bring winning. This is the law of reversibility. Every effect in the world has a spiritual cause, and that cause is always a state of consciousness. If the cause can produce the effect, then the effect can be used to determine the cause. If joy follows fulfillment, then joy assumed now hardens fulfillment into fact. This is not philosophy, it is law. Consider a man who prays for deliverance, not from his enemies, but from the pressure that surrounds him. His prayer is not a petition to an external deity, but a silent shift within himself. He assumes the relief of safety, the calmness of completion, the rest of one whose battles have already been won. And when he falls asleep in that relief, the outer world arranges itself to make it so. You think this is miraculous. I tell you, it is mechanical. Miracles are simply assumptions hardened. Now observe the pattern. You long for the winning because of the feeling you believe it will bring. But if you understand the law, you no longer chase the win. You assume the feeling now, before any sign appears in the outer world. You breathe as one who already holds the ticket, not with feverish excitement, but with quiet confidence, the calm knowledge of possession. This calmness is the true sign of faith. Most men pray with trembling hands, begging for intervention, hoping the heavens might be persuaded to bend in their favor. But the one who knows the law does not beg. He rests, he claims, he assumes, he feels relief now. The outer world is compelled to mirror his claim, for consciousness is the root and the world is the fruit. Show me the fruit, and I will tell you the tree. Show me your results, and I will reveal your assumptions. If your life is filled with anxiety, you are assuming separation from your desire. If your life is filled with peace, you are assuming union. Peace is the evidence of possession. This principle appears throughout Scripture, though few have eyes to see it. Consider the story of the multitude in the wilderness. The people hungered, and instead of pleading for food, the figure of Christ lifted his eyes and thanked the Father before the loaves multiplied. He gave thanks before the evidence, not after. Gratitude did not follow abundance. Abundance followed gratitude. The world calls that a miracle. I call it law. Or consider the prophet who faced a barren valley. He was commanded not to wait for rain, but to dig trenches in expectation. The trenches were the assumption. The rain was the hardened fact. The outer world only filled what the inner world prepared. These stories endure not as history, but as instruction. They describe your own mind. They describe imagination clothing itself in matter. Now consider how this applies to winning. You do not wait for the numbers to align. You become the one for whom such alignment is natural. The world of chance bends to the consciousness it serves. Luck is simply the path events take when consciousness has already claimed the end. Let me give you an illustration. A man I once knew desired financial freedom, but instead of imagining excitement or disbelief, he imagined waking in the morning and feeling the soft, unbothered calm of one who no longer counted coins. He imagined moving about his home without tension in his chest. He imagined paying bills with neither rush nor hesitation. His victory was not fireworks, but ease. He lived in that ease. And over time, without his seeking, an opportunity arose that multiplied his wealth. Not by chance, not by effort, but by law. His calmness was not the result of wealth. His wealth was the result of calmness. Another man sought fortune through the lottery, specifically, but he did not imagine the numbers. He imagined the way he would sit at his table weeks after the winning had settled into normalcy. Not celebration, normalcy. The feeling of course. The feeling of, this is my life. The feeling of a man who no longer prays for deliverance because he no longer feels threatened. He assumed that state for months, and when the winning came, and it did, he told me that the event felt anticlimactic, as though he were remembering rather than witnessing it. He said, "Neville, it felt like I had been living it already." And of course, he had. The world only confirmed what he had accepted within himself. Let me be clear. The event itself is irrelevant. The universe does not deliver numbers. It delivers states. If your state is one of relief, the world must provide circumstances that justify relief. It might do so through the lottery. It might do so through an inheritance, a business, a discovery, a stranger, a forgotten debt. The method is never your concern. You supply the cause. The law supplies the form. Feel the end now. Feel the lightness of burdens lifted. Feel the ease of decisions made without fear. Feel the way your shoulders rest. Feel the breath that is no longer short. Feel the silence in the mind that once shouted, "How will I survive?" If you truly feel this, deeply and consistently, you need not repeat affirmations. The state itself speaks for you, for the only true prayer is the assumption of already having. Now hear me well. If you seek excitement, you confess disbelief. If you seek signs, you confess doubt. But if you seek peace, you confess fulfillment. Peace is the quiet signature of the accomplished desire. Winning is not the cause of relief. Relief is the cause of winning. When I speak of winning, many immediately imagine numbers drawn, crowds shouting, tickets printed, and newspapers with headlines announcing sudden fortune. But I tell you, those things are merely costumes worn by consciousness. They are not the source of wealth. They are the instruments through which wealth is allowed to clothe itself in matter. The true cause is always invisible. You may believe that someone hands you the money, that a clerk slides you a ticket, that a representative calls you on the telephone, that a banker signs a document in your favor. But those people, those so-called agents of change, are not independent forces acting upon you. They are you pushed out. They are animated by the state you occupy. They behave according to the assumptions you sustain. The store owner, who smiles kindly and hands you the winning ticket, exists only because you first assumed yourself to be the one who receives such a gift. The banker, who approves a sum with ease, is simply playing the role dictated by your new inner nature. The opportunity that appears from nowhere is not chance. It is the inevitable shadow produced by a state you have already taken as your own. People do not bring you money. People reflect your conviction that money is already yours. If you do not assume yourself wealthy, then every person you meet will unconsciously reinforce your belief that you are not. They will deny you, overlook you, offer less, pay late, hesitate, reject, delay, not because they conspire against you, but because they mirror you. They are messengers of the state you serve. But if you assume wealth, quietly, confidently, without announcement, then people will arrive carrying envelopes, opportunities, offers, favors, gifts, inheritances, contracts, conversations, each one acting from the state you have impressed upon them from within yourself. You may think that assumption only affects your own life, but consciousness is a single field, not a collection of isolated minds. When you shift your state, those around you shift in response. You are not persuading them. You are summoning the version of them that corresponds to the version of you you have chosen to be. Everyone is you pushed out. Let me illustrate this principle with a story from a student who approached me after a lecture many years ago. He told me that he had followed my teachings diligently, not by forcing affirmations, but by living in the state of a man whose financial concerns were already concluded. He did not seek excitement or proof. He sought quiet assurance. He said to himself, "If I truly had abundance, I would feel ease." And so he assumed ease. He imagined not the moment of winning, not the crowd, not the announcement, but the stillness of waking in the morning weeks after the fortune had settled. He imagined paying bills without calculation. He imagined giving rather than withholding. He imagined walking through the city with shoulders relaxed, breathing as one who needs nothing from anyone. He did this not out of desperation, but out of identity. He wore wealth like a garment. It was not loud. It was not performed. It was natural. For months, nothing happened. The outer world looked unchanged. Yet inwardly, he told me, he felt a growing disconnect between his bank account and his sense of self. He said, "Neville, it was as though the numbers were lying about me." That feeling is the surest sign that the assumption has taken root. And then, without warning, the bridge began to form. But it did not come through the lottery, as he once expected. It came through a man he had met only once at a dinner party years before. That man reached out unexpectedly, offering him a chance to invest in a small business on the verge of expansion. My student had little to contribute, but because he carried himself as a man of substance, he was invited to participate nonetheless. Within months, the business flourished. His share multiplied far beyond what a lottery ticket could have provided. But more importantly, he told me, the money did not surprise me. It felt like a memory returning. This is the key. He did not win by chance. He won because he became the man who wins. The opportunity was merely one of many possible means. Had he insisted on the lottery specifically, he might have denied himself the very path that served his assumption. The world always finds the fastest route to fulfill the identity you hold. If you assume yourself to be the fortunate man, the world will create conditions that make you fortunate. The numbers need not come. The ticket need not print. The opportunity may emerge from familiar places or from strangers entirely. But it must come, because the outer world cannot resist the weight of a sustained assumption. This is why I warn you. Do not cling to the method. Cling only to the identity. If you say this money must come through the lottery, you narrow the channels through which the law may operate. You thrust your hands into the machinery of God and seek to control the method rather than accept the miracle. You diminish the infinite to the size of your preference. Instead say, I am the one to whom large sums of money come effortlessly, and allow the universe to deliver through whatever door your assumption opens. Now consider another example. A woman once approached me after a lecture in Los Angeles. She had been fixated on winning a particular state prize. She played persistently and prayed fervently, but always from the position of longing. She imagined numbers drawn, but felt doubt and desire. She believed she was pursuing wealth, but in truth she was pursuing lack. She imagined wanting, not having. So I asked her, if you had already won, what would change? She paused. She had not considered that question. After a moment, she replied, I would no longer worry about whether the money would come. I would feel safe. And so I instructed her, then feel safe now. Let the safety be the fact, not the wish. She practiced daily. She imagined not the numbers but the peace of knowing the outcome had already been secured. She assumed not the event but the identity. Only weeks later her wealth arrived, not from the lottery, but from a distant relative who passed without children, and left her the entirety of his estate. She had not planned it. She had not expected it. It came because she became the one to whom wealth belongs. Her comment to me was profound. She said, Neville, I see now that winning was not the point. Becoming was the point. And so it is. When you ask for money, you are asking for a shadow. But when you assume the state of the wealthy, you seize the substance. The shadow must follow. People will not give you money because they decide to. They will give you money because they are compelled to align with who you are. If you remain the beggar in consciousness, others will confirm your begging. If you become the heir in consciousness, others will confirm your inheritance. This is why a man in poverty may receive a windfall and lose it within months. He did not change his consciousness. He merely changed his circumstances. The state remained the same, and the world returned to match it. Likewise, a man in wealth may lose everything and regain it swiftly, for his consciousness never left the state of the wealthy. His fortune is not tied to form, but to identity. Do not aim to win once. Aim to become one who wins as a way of being. That identity reorganizes people, places, theaters of experience, and even what you call coincidence, until the world behaves as though the outcome were inevitable. The world is not waiting for you to be lucky. It is waiting for you to become the one for whom luck is redundant. Everyone you meet is simply a mirror, reflecting the state you occupy. When your state changes, the mirrors change. They cannot help themselves. When a man first begins this work, he inevitably confronts a trial, an appearance that contradicts his assumption. He holds the state of wealth, yet the letter arrives late. He assumes abundance, yet the bank account shows decline. He imagines himself the fortunate one, yet the ticket drawn bears another number. And then he says, I have failed. But I tell you, nothing could be further from the truth. You must learn this. if you are ever to create consciously, losing in the outer world means nothing. If you have won in consciousness, the outer world is always behind. It lags like an echo, like a shadow, like the last flicker of an old fire, refusing to die. It is not prophecy, it is memory. It shows not what will be, but what was. When the old state fades, its fruits may still appear for a season, just as a chopped tree may continue to bear fallen leaves until its severed branches dry. You would not declare the tree alive, because its leaves remain, nor should you declare your old identity alive, because remnants of it still appear in the world of sense. If you understand this, you will not be disturbed by appearances. But the inexperienced practitioner is easily shaken. He sees a loss and assumes his assumption has been overturned. He feels a moment of scarcity and abandons the state. He looks at the numbers, the dates, the balance sheets, and believes them to be evidence of what is coming, rather than evidence of what has already passed. He returns to the state of desire. He returns to begging. He returns to the posture of one who asks instead of one who declares. You must not do this. The greatest temptation you will ever face is not the temptation to doubt the law itself, but the temptation to measure your faith by appearances, to look at the shadows and forget the light, to interpret reality through the senses rather than through consciousness. When you lose, do not ask, "Why has the world denied me?" Ask instead, "Why did I return to the posture of one who waits?" You see, when your assumption is true, the outer world must conform, but conformity is not instantaneous. The world is dense, slow, obedient, but deliberate. It reshapes itself in time, not because time is required, but because matter is the slowest expression of spirit. The state creates immediately. The world reflects gradually. Therefore, when appearances contradict your desire, rejoice. They signify the death throes of the old state. They are the final reverberations of a consciousness you no longer occupy. They are the last echoes of a past identity dissolving into silence. Do not return to that identity to comfort yourself. Let it die. When you see loss, say not, "This proves I am unlucky." Say instead, "This is the fading memory of a man I no longer am." When you see another win, do not envy. Say, "My world is showing me the possibility of my own vision." When the moment passes and nothing occurs, do not sigh. Say, "The harvest ripens unseen." You must hold the end even when the world denies it, especially then. For faith is not believing what you see. Faith is seeing what you believe. A student once told me he would hold the assumption of winning only if the world gave him evidence. I told him that is not assumption, that is reaction. He wanted the senses to lead and consciousness to follow. But the law is reversed. You lead, the world follows. If you require proof, you do not believe. If you require reassurance, you do not assume. If you require signs, you have not yet entered the state. The man who has already won does not check. He does not anticipate. He does not measure progress. He does not cling to proof. He rests. The world may take a day or a year to reflect your new state. What does that matter to the one who has already received? Time is meaningless once you possess the end. Only the one who waits counts the hours. Let us take a moment and enter the psychology of true possession. Imagine for a moment that you truly had the wealth you seek. Not that you were promised it, not that you were expecting it, but that it was already yours. If that were true, how would you respond to a moment of apparent delay? Would you panic? No. Would you plead? No. Would you watch the world anxiously for signs? No. You would simply continue living as the one who has. If the next drawing comes and the numbers are not yours, does that disturb the one who knows he is wealthy? Does the one who has already inherited riches tremble when coins slip through his pocket? Does a king lose his kingdom because a servant denies him bread? No. His identity determines his reaction, not the momentary conditions he meets. When the world contradicts your assumption, that is the moment of trial. That is the crucible. That is where your old state attempts to reclaim you. The senses cry out, "Look, it isn't so," and the mind is tempted to respond, "Perhaps I am wrong." Do not answer the senses. Answer only consciousness. Say, this is merely the echo of what I once believed. I no longer believe it. And with that recognition, the appearance loses its hold. The shadow falls. The old state dissolves. Never forget, the outer world does not demonstrate your faith. Your faith demonstrates the outer world. A man who understands this law can watch himself lose repeatedly without a tremor of doubt, so long as he has won within, for he knows that the loss is not his present, but his past. The ticket printed last year does not tell the story of this year's consciousness. The numbers drawn tonight have nothing to do with the identity you chose yesterday. The outer world will lag behind your inner world until the lag shortens to an instant, as it eventually will. When a man sustains the state long enough, the world begins to obey swiftly. But at first, the two may disagree. Let them disagree. If your senses deny you, persist. If your emotions waver, return to fulfillment. If the world shouts no, whisper, it is already done. You must learn to ignore appearances, not by closing your eyes to them, but by seeing through them. The world is not deception, but reflection. And reflection is always late. You are not here to interpret the world. You are here to author it. And when you lose, say only this: I am not the one who lost. I am the one who has. Let the world catch up. There is a great misconception among those who attempt to create consciously. They believe that their future depends solely on new assumptions, new scenes, new feelings, new states. They forget that the past, too, speaks softly, persistently, shaping the present through old memories that still live unchallenged in the subconscious. You may assume wealth today, yet be haunted by the memory of having lost, of having failed, of being overlooked, of watching others receive what you desired. You may think the past is dead simply because time has passed, but the past lives on as long as you continue to feel it. The subconscious does not store years. It stores impressions. What happened matters little. What you felt remains. If you carry within you the feeling of having been the unlucky one, the overlooked one, the one for whom things almost happen but never quite do, then the outer world will continue to confirm that identity, even when you attempt to assume a new one. For you cannot plant new seeds in soil that still holds the roots of old shadows. Thus we revise, not to alter history, but to alter what history means. Revision is not denial, it is replacement. You do not pretend the event did not occur. You rewrite the emotional truth of the event, so that it no longer constructs the identity you carry. The world believes memory is passive, an archive of what was. But memory is active, a force shaping what will be. Every night, thousands fall asleep remembering their failures. They think they are reflecting. In truth, they are recreating. They believe they are recalling. They are decreeing. They bring tomorrow into being by reliving yesterday. If you do not revise your losses, you will repeat them. Let us begin. Think back to a moment when you believed fortune had passed you by. Perhaps you held a ticket in your hand and watched the numbers unfold with rising anticipation, only to feel your hope collapse into disappointment. Perhaps it was a letter denying your request, a conversation ending in rejection, a plan that dissolved before it ever formed. The moment itself is unimportant. What matters is that you felt yourself to be the one who does not receive. Do not flee from the memory. Bring it gently into awareness. See the room. Feel the air. Notice the posture of your body as you live that moment. The subconscious remembers posture long after it forgets details. Recall the way your shoulders sank, the way your breath shortened, the heaviness that filled the space where anticipation once lived. Now pause. Do not judge the moment. Do not condemn yourself for having felt disappointment. Simply observe it as you would observe a character on a stage. You are not here to relive the pain. You are here to replace it. Now change the scene. Do not change it with force. Do not struggle. Simply shift a detail, one small thread in the tapestry, until the entire pattern alters. Let the numbers match. Let the letter approve. Let the voice on the other end of the line speak words of acceptance. Do not imagine shock or frenzy. Do not imagine leaping from your chair or shouting in disbelief. Those reactions belong to the one who has just received. We are revising the past to align with the identity of the one who always receives. Let the result feel natural, See yourself holding the same paper, but this time the numbers align perfectly, as though they always had. Your breath does not quicken, it deepens. Your shoulders do not tense, they loosen. There is no rush of disbelief. There is a quiet recognition, a soft exhale, the peace of inevitability. Now repeat this scene, not with effort, but with gentle rhythm, until the original memory loses its power. You will know the revision is complete when the new scene feels more real than the old, when the old ending becomes vague, distant, unimportant, like a dream dissolving upon waking. If tears come, let them. They are not grief. They are release. You may believe you are imagining fiction. I tell you, you are rewriting destiny. The subconscious does not distinguish between past and present. It only knows what you feel now. And if you revise the feeling, you revise the identity formed by that memory. The past is not an anchor, it is clay. Let us go deeper. Choose another scene, not of financial loss, but of being overlooked, dismissed, denied. Perhaps you watched another receive what you believed should have been yours. Perhaps you said to yourself, some people are born lucky, but not I. That sentence, spoken once with feeling, becomes a law in the subconscious. It is not the event that harmed you, but the conclusion you drew from it. Now return to that moment, not to relive the wound, but to remove the verdict. See the scene unfold differently. Let the offer, the opportunity, the blessing be given to you instead. Let the world treat you not as an afterthought, but as the natural recipient. Again, do not imagine celebration. Imagine normalcy. Winning becomes natural when winning has always been true. If you find yourself resisting, if your mind says, but that's not what happened, then you must remember, imagination is the only reality. The event you recall was not truth. It was merely one expression of a former assumption. You are rewriting the cause, not the effect. And the cause will bring forth new effects in time. Once you revise enough memories, you will reach a remarkable realization. You were never unlucky. You merely assumed yourself to be so. The world did not deny you. Consciousness denied itself. And now that you have rewritten the script, the world must change its behavior. I once knew a woman who revised every financial failure of her life, every decline, every rejection, every disappointment, and replaced each with fulfillment. The process took months, not because the law is slow, but because she had many memories to transform. When she finished, she told me, Neville, I feel as though I have always been wealthy. And soon after, the world confirmed it through means she never could have devised. Revision erases the identity that needs to win. And once the identity is gone, winning becomes inevitable. Tonight, before you sleep, choose one memory of loss. Re-enter it. Rewrite it. Fall asleep in the feeling that it always ended well. Let the revised past become your true history. And when the subconscious accepts it, the future will reflect it. You are not here to escape the past. You are here to redeem it. There comes a moment in this work when you must stop trying to win and begin being the one who has already won. Until that transition occurs, you are merely acting, performing, hoping to persuade the world. But once the shift takes place within you, you no longer need the world's agreement. You no longer seek evidence. You no longer lean forward into the future, waiting for confirmation. You simply are. And when you are, the world must follow. Identity is the root. Circumstances are the branches. A man may hold a winning ticket and still think like a beggar. Another may hold nothing at all, yet carry himself as royalty, and the world will always conform to the latter. The first may lose everything. The second will draw wealth from soil barren to other men. Identity precedes possession. Identity produces possession. Identity sustains possession. So you must ask yourself, not how do I win, but who am I when I have already won? If you truly believed you had already received the fortune you seek, how would you walk into a room? You would not enter hurriedly, seeking approval or recognition. You would not shrink nor perform. You would move quietly, confidently, without announcement, because a man who has already won has nothing to prove. His presence is not loud, but undeniable. Your steps would carry a softness, not because you lack power, but because you possess it. Power that is secure does not pound. It rests. Power that is desperate shouts. Power that is certain whispers. How would you speak? Your voice would lose the tremor of needing something from others. You would not flatter to secure favor, nor complain to seek pity, nor justify yourself to gain recognition. Your words would be measured and calm, because the one who has already won speaks from fullness, not hunger. You would speak less, but with more weight. You would choose silence, not as withdrawal, but as sovereignty. How would you decide? You would not cling to opportunities out of fear that no others will come. You would not grasp at every chance like a starving man clutching crumbs. You would choose only what matches your identity, for the one who has already won does not attempt to survive. He selects according to abundance. The wealthy do not ask, "Is this enough?" They ask, "Is this aligned?" Your decisions would lose urgency. Urgency belongs to the one who believes time is running out. Ease belongs to the one who knows he cannot lose. When you have already won, there is no rush. The world arrives on time. How would you think? You would not calculate how to acquire, you would contemplate how to distribute. A mind anchored in possession naturally asks, "What shall I do with what I have?" Not "How will I get more?" Your thoughts would shift from accumulation to expression, for wealth held tightly decays, while wealth expressed multiplies. How would you feel? You would feel safe. Safety is the true emotion of fulfillment, not ecstasy, not exhilaration, not pride. Safety, the quiet, knowing that nothing essential can be taken from you, because it comes from within. This safety does not depend on numbers, documents, or permission. It flows from identity. If you do not feel safe, you have not assumed the end. And how would you pray? You would not beg. You would not plead. You would not petition an external power to grant you relief. You would commune with yourself as though the matter were already settled. Your prayers would become thanksgiving. Gratitude, not as hope, but as acknowledgement. When one knows he already has, prayer becomes praise. Quietly, consistently, effortlessly. But hear me well. You cannot merely act like a winner. That is performance. The world does not respond to performance. It responds to being. Acting is external. Identity is internal. One requires constant effort. The other requires surrender. A man trying to act wealthy will exhaust himself. A man who is wealthy inwardly will live in rest. Let me tell you something strange, yet true. When you assume the identity of the one who has already won, the world cannot convince you otherwise. It may contradict you, but the contradiction feels irrelevant, as though it belonged to someone else's life. You do not wait for proof. You deny the need for proof. You begin to treat the world, not as if it is lying to you, but as if it has not yet updated itself to your truth. This is what I mean when I say you must gaslight the world, not through delusion, but through memory. You remember the end so faithfully that the beginning appears mistaken. You do not ask, "When will I win?" You say, "I have already won. The world is catching up." Hold this attitude, not with arrogance, but with certainty, not with strain, but with inevitability. Let the world be late. Allow it time to rearrange itself. You are not waiting. You are observing. You are not hoping. You are remembering. Imagine now, just for a moment, waking tomorrow with no trace of desire, no residue of longing, because the matter has already been settled. You rise from bed, not thinking of outcomes, but living them. You wash your face, not as one preparing for change, but as one whose change is complete. You walk outside, not searching for signs, but carrying the ease of someone for whom life has already delivered. This is not fantasy. This is identity. A student once came to me distressed, saying, "Neville, I have assumed, I have imagined, I have believed, but I do not see results." I asked him one question: "Are you assuming or are you waiting?" His silence was the answer. He was living as a man expecting a blessing, not as a man living from a blessing. Expectation still waits. Identity has already received. The shift is subtle, but the world knows the difference. So tonight and each night hereafter, speak not to the world. Speak to yourself. Quietly, without ceremony. I have already won, not as a mantra, not as persuasion, but as remembrance. Say it as one recalls a truth long forgotten. Say it until the words dissolve and only the feeling remains. Say it until you no longer say it at all, because you no longer need to remind yourself. Identity, once fully assumed, becomes the silence beneath thought. And when you arrive at that silence, the world will no longer treat you as one who seeks. It will treat you as one who has, and it will deliver accordingly. You are not becoming the winner. You are recognizing that you have always been. There is a point in this journey where the mind must confront a truth far greater than wealth, far greater than winning, far greater even than the fulfillment of any particular desire. It is the moment when you realize that the true aim of this work is not to change conditions, but to change the one who meets them. The world has misunderstood abundance, imagining it to be an event rather than a state, a moment rather than an identity. It seeks sudden gain because it still believes gain must come from outside. But abundance is not a happening. Abundance is a being. You may win the lottery, and if you remain inwardly poor, the fortune will dissolve, and life will return you to the level of your self-concept. You may come into wealth through inheritance, business, or chance, and still feel unsafe. And the world will mirror that insecurity until the money becomes a burden rather than a blessing. The event cannot sustain the self. Only the self sustains the event. This is why I ask repeatedly, who are you in consciousness? If you transform the outer world without transforming the inner man, nothing will endure. You will grasp at manifestations like a starving child clutches bread, fearing its disappearance before it even reaches the mouth. But once you become the one who already has, you no longer cling, because what comes to you came from you, and what departs can return in greater form. The event is not the miracle. The identity is. A man may win once and lose forever. A man may never win a contest, yet live a lifetime of effortless sufficiency. Which of these is wealth? Which of these is freedom? You must choose not the outcome, but the being. The world thinks the highest prize is a single moment when numbers align, as if the divine intelligence of creation were reduced to a drawing of slips and chance. But that event, should it occur, is merely the shadow of a greater truth, that consciousness, when rightly assumed, produces continual unfoldment. The true lottery is the realization that life itself is a reflection of your inner state, moment by moment, inexhaustibly, without effort. When a man becomes the state of abundance, he begins to notice something extraordinary. He no longer waits for fortune to arrive in one stroke. Instead, opportunities rise from every direction, quietly, naturally, unhurried. People offer assistance without being asked. Doors open without knocking. Paths clear before they are needed. Money comes as a tool, not a rescue. He no longer hopes for miraculous events. He becomes the miracle. Now I ask you to consider this deeply. If you had to choose between winning once and never fearing loss again, which would you choose? The masses choose the event. The awakened choose the identity. The identity of the wealthy one does not rely on a prize. It does not require acknowledgement. It does not wait for proof. It breathes differently. It thinks differently. It decides differently. And because identity is the root, the world must continue to produce fruit in proportion to it. The event satisfies the senses for a moment. Identity transforms the soul for a lifetime. Once you are the one who has, you cannot return to scarcity, for scarcity would feel foreign. It would feel like a costume borrowed from a stranger. You might recall it intellectually, but it would hold no emotional truth. There was a man who once came to my lectures, believing that if he could win a large sum, his life would change. And he did win. But after some time, he found himself again in need, again in fear, again at the mercy of circumstance. He came back to me puzzled, and I said only this: you have won once, but you have not become the winner. A single event cannot replace a lifetime of assumptions, but a single new assumption can replace a lifetime of events. The world reflects you. If you are still the one who seeks, the world will give you endless seeking. If you are still the one who hopes, the world will give you endless hope. But when you become the one who has, the world responds accordingly, not once, but continually, because consciousness is persistent. This is why I tell you, stop waiting to win. Step into the identity of the one who wins naturally. Imagine how such a man or woman moves through daily life. He does not search for financial salvation. He does not clutch opportunities with desperation. He does not anxiously calculate. He navigates the day in a state of quiet sufficiency. His confidence is not loud. It is inherent. He does not pursue abundance. He expresses abundance, and because he expresses abundance, abundance must return to him. The world is circular, not linear. What you send out returns. What you embody expands. What you assume hardens. If you assume lack, the world answers with lack. If you assume abundance, the world answers with forms that match abundance. The true lottery is not a number drawn. It is the discovery that there is no number that can give you more than consciousness already contains. You are not the beneficiary of fortune. You are the source. Those who chase outcomes are like fishermen casting nets into an ocean they believe to be separate from themselves. Those who change identity are like the ocean itself, supplying fish wherever the nets descend. Let us go deeper still. If you were already wealthy, not temporarily, not conditionally, but fundamentally, how would you treat life? You would not count coins. You would not conserve joy. You would not fear generosity. You would move through the world as a giver, not because of duty, but because giving is natural to one who possesses. The wealthy do not give to prove wealth. They give because wealth overflows. The man who hoards reveals he is not wealthy, regardless of what he owns. His clinging exposes the truth of his self-concept, and the world will match that truth until he learns that wealth is not measured by accumulation, but by ease. Ease is the signature of abundance. So ask yourself, is your desire for wealth born of fear or expression? Is it born of survival or identity? If your desire arises from lack, wealth will elude you, for you assume lack. But if it arises from the fullness of being, wealth will seek you. Let us remove at last the final veil. You do not seek abundance because you lack it. You seek abundance because you are remembering yourself. The true transformation is not of your bank balance, but of your being. The outer symbols of wealth will come. They are obedient servants, but they are not the treasure. The treasure is the realization that consciousness is the only substance from which anything is made. When you possess that, you have won the only lottery that matters. Breathe with me now, gently, not as one preparing for effort, but as one settling into what is already his. I want you to lie down, if you are able, or sit in a way that allows no strain. Let your hands rest where they fall. Let the breath come naturally. There is no need to improve it. It already carries the rhythm of life itself. Simply notice the rise and fall of the chest, the softness behind the eyes, the stillness that grows, not because you force it, but because you cease to interfere. For a moment, let us release the world, release the day, release every memory of striving, every image of hoping, every whisper of waiting. You are not the seeker in this moment. You are the possessor. You are not the petitioner. You are the heir. The world you have known until now has been built upon your assumptions. And tonight we lay down a new foundation, not in effort, not in desperation, but in quiet certainty. Let your breath slow. Let your limbs grow heavy. Feel the weight of the body as though it were sinking into the earth itself. Not to be trapped by it, but to be held, carried, supported. Everything is supporting you now. Nothing is required. And as you drift gently toward that edge between waking and sleep, where imagination speaks with authority and the senses grow silent, you will not visualize winning. Winning is the old language of separation, of something distant from you, something that might arrive if you behave correctly. Tonight you step beyond that childlike view. Tonight you assume the identity from which victory flows, as naturally as breath. You are not the one who hopes to win, you are the one who has already won. Let the breath soften. Feel the warm stillness spread across the face, the throat, the chest, the belly, the legs. Let even the tongue loosen in the mouth. There is nothing to say with words. All speaking tonight is inward, silent, and saturated with power. Now let the scene arise, not a scene of acquisition, but a scene of being. Do not picture yourself scratching a ticket, counting coins, or leaping with excitement. Excitement belongs to the initiate, the beginner who is shocked by the fulfillment of his own prayer. But you are beyond shock. You are beyond surprise. The state you are entering does not tremble at its blessings. It expects them, it recognizes them, it calls them familiar. So instead of imagining the moment of gaining, imagine the moment after. The moment where all is settled, where the world has already rearranged itself to match who you are. Perhaps you are sitting in your favorite chair, not in celebration, but in quiet, recognition. A ledger rests before you, balanced with ease. A letter confirming what is now commonplace lies folded beside your hand. The atmosphere in the room is not frantic. It is calm, dignified, inevitable. You feel no rush, no disbelief. You simply exist as the one to whom it always returns. Ease into that calm, into that belonging. What does your home feel like when such things are natural to you? Not grand unless you desire grandeur. Perhaps simple, but deeply your own. Perhaps sunlight stretches across a polished table. Perhaps the sound of distant traffic drifts through an open window, like an obedient servant, rather than a source of concern. Perhaps there is a cup of something warm beside you, untouched, cooling slowly, because your thoughts are elsewhere, not in longing, but in satisfaction. Stay in that place. Let the shoulders drop. Let the breath release even further. You are not forcing rest, you are remembering it. Now notice the feeling beneath the scene. Not excitement, but completion. Not hope, but possession. The quiet certainty that does not demand proof, because it is proof. The quiet knowing that does not chase signs, because it is the sign. Feel how natural it is to be provided for. Feel the subtle shift from seeking to having. Notice how the body relaxes more deeply. The moment you stop asking and begin being. And now, allow my words to fade slightly into the background, not disappearing, but becoming like a soft wind moving through a field, guiding but not commanding. Here within yourself, the identity that has replaced the old one. Not spoken loudly, not shouted, but whispered from the marrow. I am the one it always returns to. Say nothing aloud. Let the words imprint themselves as sensation, not sound. It is not a sentence to chant. It is a nature to inhabit. Feel how the world bends around such a one. Feel how life organizes itself around this simple truth. Feel how chance ceases to exist for you, not because you escape randomness, but because randomness becomes obedient. Breathe again, slow, deep, effortless. Now imagine rising from your chair, not hurriedly, but as one who moves with quiet authority. Perhaps you walk to a writing desk. Perhaps you simply stand at the window. Perhaps you speak to no one. The scene does not need others to witness it. The truth does not need an audience. The floor beneath your feet feels solid, owned, chosen. You walk not as one lucky enough to receive fortune, but as one for whom fortune is inevitable. Let the body adopt that posture now, shoulders aligned, spine open, breath calm, even lying still. You may feel the subtle dignity of this identity. The tranquility is not passive, it is regal. And notice, there is no desire left. Not because the world has fulfilled it, but because you have ceased to be the one who desires. Desire dissolves when the assumed state is complete. There is no gap to close, no prayer to utter, no waiting to endure. You simply are. Let that feeling saturate you more deeply. Let it sink into the spaces between thoughts, into the pauses between breaths, into the silence behind your heartbeat. Even the mind begins to quiet now, not falling asleep, but entering that sacred twilight where imagination is sovereign. If a stray thought arises, doubt, inquiry, logic, do not fight it. Let it pass like a traveler on a distant road. Return gently to the identity, the one to whom it always returns. Not a hope, a condition, a nature. Let the breath dim to a whisper. Let consciousness narrow to a soft glow. Feel the threshold of sleep approaching, not a collapse, but a surrender. And if sleep comes, allow it. Do not cling to the scene. Do not try to hold it. Let it carry you like a boat on still water. Let the assumption drift with you into the depths where creation occurs. Fall asleep, not trying to win, but as the one who has already won and has always been such. And if you remain awake just a little longer, linger in this sensation without effort. There is nothing more to add, nothing more to build. The work is done. Let the body fall. Let the mind dissolve. Let the identity remain. Breathe. Be. Become. And now silently, I am the one it always returns to. Let that be the final thought before sleep takes you. And surrender. There comes a moment in every seeker's journey when the object of desire fades, not because it loses value, but because it can no longer compete with the magnitude of the one who desires. Wealth, success, winnings, all these are but shadows reflections, garments worn for a season. The true treasure is the discovery that the wearer and the weaver are one and the same. I have seen countless men come to me for money, and I have watched them leave with something far greater. They came asking for gold and found themselves transformed into the mine from which gold is drawn. They sought a single blessing and awoke as the source of blessing itself. This is the strange paradox of the law. When you seek things, you remain a beggar. When you seek yourself, you become the giver of all things. Let us linger here. You have spent much of your life believing that riches are something you receive from the world, from fortune, from chance, from other men. You imagined wealth as something outside your door, arriving if the winds blow kindly. You believed money to be a possession, perhaps earned, perhaps given, perhaps withheld. But what if I told you that wealth is not a possession, but an expression, not something added to you, but something exhaled through you, a shadow cast by your state of being, the garment worn by the indwelling power? You may win many fortunes in this life, and yet lose everything should you forget the source from which they emanate. For the moment you believe the prize exists outside you, you have surrendered the throne and taken the servant's seat. You have become subject to circumstance. The true victory is not the winning of fortune, but the revelation that you are the one who authored fortune. The true treasure is not the wealth, but the realization that you are the wealth of which money is merely a reflection. Let your breath deepen just slightly, not in effort, but in reverence. Let us turn inward once more. There is a moment, a subtle, sacred moment, when the victory you once sought becomes a signpost, not a destination. The world applauds the prize. Heaven applauds the awakening. Imagine now that you have already received everything you once desired. The money is yours. The security is yours. The recognition is yours. Nothing is missing. And now, look beyond it. What remains? Who are you without the need? Who inhabits the throne once occupied by longing? What is left when there is no more chasing, no more hoping, no more asking? There, in that silence, you meet yourself not as the creature of need, but as the creator of fulfillment. You discover that the power you once called luck was your own consciousness. The voice you once prayed to was your own inner speech. The force that moved the world was your own assumption. This is the unveiling, the sacred rending of the veil. You discover that God was never a distant figure listening to your petition. God was the very awareness from which the petition arose. God was not the source of your manifestations. God was the manifestation, the desire, the fulfillment, and the awareness that perceived them all. The world calls this blasphemy. Scripture calls this revelation. I and my Father are one. Not similar, not aligned, one. When this truth settles into your being, not as a concept to ponder, but as a fact to inhabit, the entire drama of life is reinterpreted. No longer do you beg. No longer do you plead. No longer do you chase signs or miracles. You speak, and the world obeys, not because the world is subordinate, but because the world is yourself pushed out. Creation is not separate from the Creator. It is the echo of the divine whisper within you. Let us sit in silence with this. Feel the weight of your being, not the body, the awareness behind the body, the presence that hears these words even when the mind drifts. That presence is the true prize. For long have you mistaken the shadows for the source, the gold for the sunbeam, the miracle for the law, the blessing for the blesser. But tonight, you reclaim the origin. You return to the throne. You remember. Now breathe again, not as a body, but as consciousness itself. Let the air move through you as though you were not inhaling from the world, but breathing the world into existence. Feel that subtle shift. The breath no longer enters you. It comes from you. Life no longer happens to you. It happens through you. Do you feel the difference? This is the true lottery. Not the winning of numbers, but the winning of self. Not the accumulation of possessions, but the unveiling of identity. Not the arrival of wealth, but the recognition that wealth was always the garment of the divine imagination, and that imagination is yourself. If all riches vanished tomorrow, you could summon them anew. If all victories dissolved, you could dream them again. If every door shut, walls themselves would part at your approach. For the kingdom is not external. The storehouse is not in banks or bonds. The treasure is not in vaults, nor in the coffers of nations. The treasure lies in the one who assumes you. Let the world whisper of odds and probabilities. Let scholars argue about chance and causation. Let men toil for what they believe is scarce. You know the truth, nothing is scarce to the one who is the source. And now, gently, quietly, let the final realization form, not as a declaration, but as a remembrance. The true prize is not that I have won, but that I am he who wins. Let that settle into your bones, your breath, your silence. No need to say more. The truth now speaks of itself. And so we rest as the creator, not the creature, as the author, not the actor, as the power that speaks worlds into form. Be still, be aware, be God. And now, my friend, we come to the quiet end, not an ending of the journey, but an end of the asking. For tonight, you have crossed a threshold from which one does not return unchanged. You entered seeking the prize, but you depart as the giver of prizes. You came longing for fortune, yet you leave as the fountain from which fortune flows. The world may not yet know what you have received here, for some victories bloom first in silence, deep beneath the soil of consciousness, long before the flowers show themselves to the passing eye. And so let this closing not be loud, nor triumphant, nor eager, but still, reverent, assured. There is no need to shout when you already know. Let me now speak to that secret place within you, the chamber where no man enters but you alone, and where no voice is heard except the whisper of the divine imagination. That place where you speak to yourself as though speaking to God, and where God responds as though responding to himself. For that is the mystery. The speaker and the hearer are one, and the prayer and the fulfillment are a single breath. You do not leave this room to share what you have learned, as though handing out instructions to the unprepared. Do not cast pearls before those who see life only with the eyes. Do not seek to persuade the stubborn or convince the cynical. For truth does not travel by argument, it travels by embodiment. When you walk as the one who has already won, men will inquire of you, not because you spoke, but because you became. Let them see your peace before you speak a word. Let them witness your stillness where they would tremble. Let them see you walk through life as though the invisible were the only substance, and the visible merely its shadow. They will ask, what has happened to you? And you will answer not with explanation, but with presence. For the truth is not taught, it is revealed through being. And as you rise from this state, do not rush. Move slowly, as though waking from a dream that continues even in daylight. For what is the world but a dream made solid? And what is your body but the garment of awareness? And what is time but the stretching of a single eternal moment into sequence? You need not go anywhere to begin. You have already begun. The path ahead does not require announcements, nor proclamations, nor declarations. The work you do now is inward, and the ripple will move outward of its own accord. You do not need to write letters, nor seek counsels, nor ask permission. Your authority is not borrowed, it is inherent. The world is not waiting to approve your transformation. It is waiting to reflect it. Walk out into the night as though the stars shine in acknowledgement of who you are. Walk as though the ground rises to greet your footsteps. Walk as though the very air shapes itself to your intention, not in pride, but in quiet majesty, as one who remembers. And if doubt should whisper to you, and it will, even now, do not answer with fear. Answer with identity. Do not plead with the external to change. Return to the inner chamber and change yourself. Do not look at appearances to confirm what is true. Look from truth to transform appearances. The world has no choice. Now listen closely, for this final moment is not a conclusion, but a sealing. Let your breath become soft. Let the body surrender to rest, not from fatigue, but from completion. The work has been done. The seed has been planted. The assumption has been taken as real. The state is yours. Do not reach for tomorrow. Let tomorrow reach for you. And now, very gently, let the sentence return, not as an incantation to summon, but as a mantle you wear, not as a hope, but as a memory. I already have it. Let the words echo from silence, not thought. Let them arise as though spoken from beneath the heart, not from the lips. Speak them in the stillness, where language dissolves into knowing. I already have it. Once more, softer, as though the universe leans in to hear. I already have it. Do not add emotion to force it. Let the naturalness carry it. For what you already possess requires no strain. It simply is. Now, let the words fall away entirely, leaving only the state from which they were born. Remain not in speech, but in being. The prayer is finished. Before we part, I leave you with this blessing, not cast upon you from above, but awakened within you from below. May you remember that your desire is your permission. May you walk as the author, not the seeker. May you speak as the source, not the supplicant. And may the world obey, not because it must, but because it cannot do otherwise. For consciousness is the only reality, and you are its eternal center. Now rest, not as one who awaits, but as one who is. Good night, my friend, and may this night be counted unto you for righteousness.